it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bump into your broadcast, grab a chair, fill your glass. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bump into your broadcast, grab a chair, fill your glass.
Hey, welcome to the Really Charlie Podcast. High in the sky, above in the attic. As you can see, I'm in the attic of the home of the bold, what do I want to say, Casa de Perry. I think it's something like that, you know. So we are here, we are here, and I do this every Sunday, 12 noon. Like to do this, and let me just go on and say that this is basically started because of my dear friend Andrew that passed away due to fentanyl poisoning, and so the best way I can do and reach out to many folks is to do a podcast every week in his name. And you know, Andrew was just an amazing kid, and I'm gonna actually read his story as much as I can. Andrew's story, Forever 33. Andrew had a kind heart. He was passionate and deeply committed to coaching and teaching basketball. He was the proprietor and owner of Achieve Greatness 88.org, which utilized the to uplift and teach your youth or our youth about basketball and life. He took great pride in it, despite the usual challenges that face new businesses. He established clientele even during COVID-19 pandemic. Determined to make a difference, he performed the task with all his heart, and at a young age, Andrew adopted his favorite football team, which is his beloved New York Jets, and remained a fan even when they were performing at their least. And Andrew was a great sports fan. You know, I remember talking to him about many things, and but Achieve Greatness 88.org, that was the organization that he maintained, and now that his mom and his dad are now doing it. But without any further ado, my guest today is Counsel at Large, Shane Burgo. Great man, always civic minded, been doing this thing with the community. I believe I seen him at the young age of 14 doing stuff like this. So, and now he's a grown man doing this thing, and I'm very proud of him. And the election's coming, and you got to cast 5 votes, and you will not go wrong if you give Shane one of your votes. All right, Shane, what's up, man?
I appreciate that, Charlie. Thank you very much. Yeah. No, I want to thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I know I'm hoping Paula Santos Young will also be able to join us shortly. You know, I've been thankful, you know, for her partnership in this work that I know that her nonprofit Achieve Greatness is working on. You know, she approached me this past summer. You know, about how I can be more helpful or more useful. You know, as you know, I'm a counselor at large here in New Bedford, and our local government right now, as we know, the city council is very limited in their legislative power. But what we lack for in that legislative power, we make up for in our influence here in the community. So that's why I'm hopeful to, you know, continue this partnership with Paula and those with Achieve Greatness and people like you. To come on these podcasts to, you know, educate and inform people of the growing concern that we have around fentanyl poisoning. And I think it's very important to emphasize that this is poisoning our community. You know, we talk a lot about overdoses, you know, I think the biggest difference between overdoses and poisoning is those who are overdosing. know what they're ingesting. But those who are poisoned don't even know that fentanyl might even be in what they're inhaling or what they're utilizing. So I think there's a huge difference that we really need to discuss in this community is the overwhelming number of fentanyl poisoning that we're seeing right here in New Bedford. Of course, this is a greater issue nationwide. But obviously, as a counselor at large here in New Bedford, I'm focused on the people here in New Bedford and the growing concern of deaths that we're seeing. And what's alarming for me that Paula has shared with me and all the statistics and information she's brought forward, is that this is not just an issue among our adults. It's
Yes.
it's actually starting to seep into our schools. One of the and I don't have it in front of me here, but one of the age groups is 1 years old to 5 of fentanyl poisoning deaths that we're seeing. And then obviously from there, high school and those ages, it's just very troubling to see. So I'm hoping to partner with more people like Paula to really help get into our school system to educate our students on this poison that is growing through our community and how we can help stop it.
Exactly. The and when you say when you say that young age of 1 years old, people don't realize that it's very small fragments of fentanyl that could be anywhere.
Mhm.
Could be on a table. You know, God forbid, but a user could leave it around. And then a kid kind of messes around with it. The first thing you look at it, you may believe that it's if it's in a crush form, you may think that it's powdered sugar at a young age. And so
Well, yeah, that was one of the images, Paul had shared with me was the 3 grains of salt, I believe it is. If you can
mhm,
imagine, on a table of a little sprinkling of salt, just 3 grains of salt. That's all it takes to kill somebody. That amount of fentanyl, just 3 grains of salt. And I feel like that is such a harrowing image to see on they zoom in on the 3 grains of salt to show you just the small little bit of amount of fentanyl it takes to kill a grown man like myself. It's very scary.
yeah, it is. It affects what you're breathing. And it's just that. Let me. I'm gonna try to put something on the bottom screen. Um, it's man-made. It's powerful than morphine and heroin, and it just if you could just think of that, just think of all the different things, all the different people in your lives, my lives that were addicted, and what it did, and the causes and the massive downfall that it caused. Well, fentanyl is just so much more powerful that it's not giving you time to kind of enjoy a high. It's giving you time to to inhale and exhale real very quickly, but it's going to stop it. Boom, just like
Mhm.
that. And uh, everyone's kind of just doing a lot of recreational stuff, and you never know what's laced on it, what's put on it, coming from different areas and different people. You never know what's laced, and you may think that you're just gonna go and get high somewhere, or maybe just to handle PSTD and all that stuff. You may or just mental problems and just want to kind of veg out maybe, and then all of a sudden you find out that the joint that you had, the pill that you had is was laced, and you know and it ends up killing you and poisoning you, such in the case that Andrew went through. The um Shane, I just want to mention that during this time I have my phone, I I put it on do not disturb just so we won't get so many alerts.
Mhm.
Just picture your phone, right? Your phone's probably going off bzz, 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 constantly. This situation is so important to me that I have to put it on, do not disturb. And well, I just sent Paula an email, so hopefully she can get on get the link and then get on with us so we can have another conversation.
Good.
The I know there was we had a conversation about you know opioid awareness, fentanyl awareness, and we got to do more of that. I think that especially when I was growing up, we had a, a lot of AIDS awareness days in this community, and it was very important because there was a lot of resources going to those events and passing out literature. There's a misunderstanding of things such as fentanyl, and that we have to get it out. We have to get this message out very quickly because there's a lot of experimentation going on in the community, especially the young group, the young kids. Um, I just want to help out as much as I can. So, as a counselor at large, when you're doing something like this, especially with this, just count me in. Count me in so I can help, so I can be that other voice, and so WNB1 could be that other voice. The Really Charlie podcast could be another voice. Um, and well, Paula's here. I'm going to add her to the stage here.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Hello. How
Hello.
you doing?
So you already know I'm like technically inclined, okay? I suck at IT stuff, and you changed the platform.
I, I know,
Oh,
but
that's right. You
we,
use Fireside.
yeah,
Yes.
we couldn't. There's nothing around it. I don't know what happened other than they've been hacked for the past few months, and they've been trying to do whatever they can as far as technical problems. But what they did is they put so many restrictions on things, and what it does is it just hurts the creators like myself and thousands of others. And so we try to schedule events, and we can't schedule them until probably the day before. And as it is, I wasn't even able to schedule this event as of this morning. So could you imagine if I was on Fireside trying to do this? It just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't have been able to happen, and I would have been stuck in a rock and a hard place.
So what have we already talked about? And Shane, thank you, Councilman Virgo. Thank you so very much for joining us. This is obviously, Charlie has a huge platform. We are appreciative that you are on. You are our first, hopefully, and not the last of many that we would like to
Certainly.
get on here, especially just to kind of hear your stance on. We know that you're running for reelection, but also in reference to everyone knows, including Charlie, my platform being nonprofit here in the state of Massachusetts regarding fentanyl, xylazine, and all the other drugs. And I just received notification yesterday that the DEA will be putting out a notice that now it is 7 out of 10 pills that are laced with fentanyl. So more pills are coming in. They are continuing to poison our loved ones. There is a billboard going up. It is the billboard that goes right into downtown, which used to be, I believe, exit 18 off of I-95.
Mhm.
Charlie, is that the one? The one that's right at
I believe it is.
Route 18?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like 17, I think.
So that billboard, as of tomorrow, you will see the faces of 30 loved ones that have been lost to fentanyl poisoning in our state and some across the country. And this is just a reminder to folks that these lives are being taken by being poisoned by fentanyl. It is not an overdose. But we'd love to hear your take on this. And of course, Charlie, what you don't know is Councilman Burgo and I have been working in the background, or he has, and he can tell you what just occurred in reference to his tireless effort. And we appreciate that. Achieve Greatness appreciates everything that he has done for us. But I'll let him speak on that.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Paula. I chuckled when you first started because you called me Shane, which I have worked very hard for those watching to get her to call me Shane because she's very formal as Councilman Burgo. But as Charlie knows, I'm someone from the community, so I always chuckle. I appreciate, obviously, the formality of being called Councilman Burgo, but I was very glad that finally she called me Shane and then quickly switched back to Councilman Burgo. But yes, as I shared, Paula, before you had got on, that I was very thankful that we crossed paths. As Charlie knows, one of my first interviews actually was with Charlie when I was first running as a candidate. And I shared with him, as I shared with you and others, one of the main reasons I decided to run was the large number of overdoses that we were seeing, specifically in New Bedford. And when you compare that data to our surrounding towns, Fall River, Fairhaven, Dartmouth, or even places like Boston, a city like Boston, where you would imagine that their overdoses would be increasing more than New Bedford, but they were having a notable decrease back in 2019, where we had a notable increase. And so some of the concerns I had around that was, before I was a candidate, before I was a councilman, the rhetoric and the stigma, the narrative around that was, these are criminals, they're
Mm,
thugs,
yeah.
they want this for themselves, if they wanted help they'd get help, and all these other terrible things. But as we know, to expand on the point that you were just making, we also mentioned that, as well as that not just overdoses but poisonings, which is a huge difference. So addressing that, because we know they're not thugs, they're not criminals. There are basketball coaches, there are moms, there are dads, there are family, there are friends, there are neighbors. So I think it's important, for us to really get away from that stigma, because that's first and foremost how we can help others. And I think that has a lot to do with education, and that's what I'm hoping to do with my platform. I also shared with Charlie. Obviously we know here on the city council we're very limited in our legislative power, but for what we lack, obviously, in legislative power, we make up for in influence. So taking
Mm,
this time,
yes.
using this platform, which again, I want to thank, excuse me, Charlie and Paula for giving me this opportunity to raise up this issue. And so, as Paula alluded to, 2 council meetings ago, we were able, I put forward a resolution that was approved and voted on and signed by all of my colleagues, all 11 counselors, in recognition of Fentanyl Awareness and Prevention Day. So I was able to present that to Paula and her husband in our council chamber in New Bedford. So I was very thankful for that. I know Paula obviously is very thankful for it, but what I will say is I feel like it's not enough.
True.
So much more needs to be done. Obviously, again, addressing it and acknowledging it is very important. It's the first step in many. And I'm sure, Paula, you'll share with everyone this Thursday coming up, I believe, we have a
Yes.
fentanyl awareness and prevention town hall meeting at the Fairhaven Town Hall, which I don't have that address in front of me, but I will be there in attendance, as well as I'm sure many other political leaders and community members and stakeholders. And I welcome everyone to join us. I believe it's from 5:30 or
Yeah,
5.
it's from
Okay,
5.
5.
Yeah, 5:30 to 7. But of course, we're leaving time for Q&As because we do have a colleague. Well, I'll say colleague, but I'm a stakeholder, as many know, with the New England DEA, and I know that the many of the DEA folks have not been very welcomed in the city because of issues that had occurred previously that I unfortunately did not know, was not aware of. But I can tell you that the person who's coming, he is 100% behind everything that we are doing. 100%. I do not align myself, and Charlie knows this. He knows me very well. He knows my family. We do not align ourselves with folks who are not on the same mission as I am, as we are, as the organization is Achieve Greatness. And I can tell you that he is someone who has a family member who is also struggling with substance abuse. So this is personal for him. This is something where he's coming in not as that level of an agency, but as a human being to speak about his experience and his family and what they've endured. And I'm hoping that, as you said, we get a lot of folks. I know that I just received word that unfortunately DA Quinn is not able to attend. He has another engagement, but someone from his office will be there. But, this is the first of many because I think it's important. We have other speakers who are coming in. There's a mom coming in from Colorado. She lost her daughter 5 years ago now, Ashley, to fentanyl poisoning. She started facing fentanyl. She's been boots on the ground and has done many, many things. In fact, she just signed a huge platform with the American Trucking Association, where the trucks are now going to have a logo, not just of hers, but about fentanyl poisoning. So the 18-wheelers on the highways across the United States are now, they are going to be also our voice. And that is huge. And many of these things that are happening in the background are the countless efforts of many parents, not just myself, but others who are trying to get this done. We have many legislators here in the city, from, the Councilman Hendricks and Cabral and Senator Montigny and many others, and Bill Keating, Congressman Keating, and many, and even yourself, and so many that I can't even mention all, who are truly on the platform of this. They know the crisis, they see it, they want to start to do something because they know that not doing anything is no longer an option.
True. It's those are some great names. Kind of shakers and movers, especially Keaton. I love him. I would vote for that guy every single time he's on the ballot, only because he was very sincere with a lot of conversations that I had with him. And I didn't have to, when I was speaking about New Bedford, the little things, community, what's going on, for somebody like that to name streets off the back of his head, hand, and just say, all right, I know where South 2nd Street or Walnut Street is, those in between streets where you talk about Beetle Street and stuff like that. I like that about someone where a politician can come off and I can have a conversation with them and they can just basically tell me where Wing Street is and tell me where, those neighborhood streets are, or maybe even where the problems may exist, and I like that about him. He's an honest guy. And just like Shane is, you can have a conversation with them, know that it's genuine. And if you have to call bullshit, excuse my language, you can call bullshit and they'll have another conversation with you. Well, why is it bullshit? And then they can basically, let me give you some more facts. And that's what I like about a politician. I think here in this city, we have a lot of people that just think that this title at council at large is just going to be handed to them and just give it to them by name recognition. It drives me crazy. So, and I know Shane's working hard. His signs are all over the place, and signs don't necessarily vote. We got to get out there and vote. People have to get out there and vote. You can put 1,000 signs out there and then get 500 votes. You have to go. So, but anyways, what I like to see is I really want to see an opioid awareness day. This is something that I really would like to see in this area. Because
Charlie, excuse me, that's what August 21st is.
Okay.
That's the legislative law that was passed on the federal level by Chuck Grassley and by Dianne Feinstein, who unfortunately we just lost. Those two were the big spearheads behind that federal legislation that passed unanimously to declare August 21st a federal day. And then what many are doing, like, with Councilman Burgo, they're doing it on the local level and on the city level to make sure that it is recognized correctly and that people are making aware of it, as your other days that we have, where you have Overdose Awareness Day and Prevention Day and all that. So now this is now going to be a day that's also made aware of, because again, the loved ones that are passing away are not from overdose. They are from a poisoning. So it's a little bit, it's a tad different. And I think that's where the stigma also comes. And I know, Charlie, you and I have talked about this many times on our podcast, where we've had many different guest speakers come on who are also saying that the narrative needs to change. It's not changing. Many folks are still saying it's an overdose, including those in position of power and position in office, and even, reporters and folks who are doing streaming about this. They're still calling it an overdose. It needs to stop. It is not an overdose. When you are given something you have absolutely no knowledge of, that is not an overdose. That is a poisoning. You are being poisoned. And then there's legislation that needs to occur around that. And Councilman, you know about this because I've spoken to you about it. The third pillar of what Achieve Greatness is doing. And Charlie, you know this because Charlie is actually one of our advisors on our nonprofit. And, the legislation needs to be where we put something in place, like declaring fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction, because then when someone gives this to your loved one and your loved one passes away from no knowledge of what they were given, that person is going to do jail time. End of discussion. There's no prosecutor coming to you and saying, sorry, we can't do anything. We don't have enough. That's it. Done. And that's what many states are starting to do. Governor Youngkin did it in Virginia. It was passed unanimously. The governor in Texas, I know, is also looking to do it. This needs to catch on, because if people really look at the logistic and the facts of fentanyl, it is a weapon of mass destruction. It's not, it's airborne, it's liquid, it's powder. The cartel does not care. We saw what just happened 2 weeks ago at a daycare in Bronx, New York, a daycare where a 1-year-old lost their life. So we need to get to the truth of the matter and make sure that we are sitting at the table and really put this forward. Because again, as we all know, former law enforcement. No, that's okay. Charlie being former law enforcement, he can even speak on this. When you have an entity that's coming in to bring mass destruction into your community, they don't care about you.
No, they don't. They don't. And believe it or not, as part of that entity, we have a lot of local people that are tied into it, and they don't care also. So and that's the battle that we have in this community, that everyone's looking for a hustle, not knowing the consequences. And
I think what's important to highlight too is, as Paula pointed out, the different states and governors that are pushing for this. And then obviously, if you look at the federal level, Senator Grassley and obviously the late Senator Feinstein, this is a nonpartisan issue. It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. This is affecting everyone, affecting all of our communities. So I think that's so important to highlight in a situation like this, that these different political parties, political figures are coming together because it is a weapon of mass destruction. So, it's very important that we as a community see that this is something that does not discriminate against anyone based on race, gender, creed. That's how concerning it is for so many people.
So true.
And why don't you talk, Councilman, on what you're planning to do for your community, for our community, as a counselor at large, because you have been in 2 years now. You're running for re-election, so the people can kind of really hear from you, because there are folks out there that are listening, and I can tell you, and I know this from experience, and I'm sure Charlie does, who are saying, not my child. That will never happen to me. Or you guys are talking about something that can never occur. Well, just last year we had a student who lost their life to fentanyl poisoning right here in our high school. So when people don't think it can happen, it can, and there just is not enough awareness about it. And again, talk in reference to what you feel as your platform. And again, I appreciate you kind of collaborating with us, because I say this all the time, and Charlie knows, we can't do that. I cannot do this on my own. I can't. Charlie, even with Charlie helping me and being an advisor, we cannot do this on our own. Achieve Greatness cannot just stand at the pedestal and say, this is what we want done. We need help from all of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so for me, especially on the local level here, using my influence as I can, to help. I know that you're planning on hopefully getting into our school system,
Yes.
to offer that education level for our students. But even more so, as again, as troubling as it is that even we have to worry that our children are suffering from this as well. But even on, as we go up to adult age and what concerns we can try to combat there, you hit it right on the head. A lot of people have that mentality of, well, this can't happen to me. That happens to other people. That doesn't happen
Yes.
to me.
True.
And I think it's important. That's why people like Andrew, his story, it's so important for you to share that. And as you mentioned, the town hall that's coming up, the families that will come and share the stories of their loved one, so that they weren't, their life wasn't lost in vain. That we can use their story to educate others and help affect change. I think I've shared with you too, even the stigma that we see, not only with the poisonings, but also overdoses. We still, there obviously is situations where people are choosing, a particular drug of their choice for whatever reason that may be, and they may overdose and succumb to that as well. And so we need to help them as well. So for me, the work that I'm trying to do, when we look at how do we solve that issue, I always say we have to look not only obviously at our education system, of course, we want to tackle it at a young age, but as adults, what are we doing to help around, as you know, the housing crisis here in New Bedford? Or again, I reference our entire Commonwealth and nationwide, we know there's a huge housing crisis. Particularly here in the Commonwealth, we're short about 100,000 units. So you have a number of individuals that are unhoused, living on the streets, not knowing what to do. A lot of times people assume that they turn to that the reason why they're in the situation they're in is because of the misuse of substances. But a lot of times they turn to those substances because they've been unhoused, because they've lost their job, because they have not received the opportunities or resources that they need to be self-sufficient. So that's my work. I say as a local legislator, obviously we're working hard as chairman of affordable housing and homeless affairs. That's been the focus of my committee, designing changes to our accessory dwelling units to make that more feasible for property owners, to help free up some of these units that we have. We know now that we're working on the vacant property manager position to hopefully get some of these other units that have been vacant for a long time back on, available to those who need it. That I think is one of the big things that we need to work on is housing, because that, I always say, is the foundation for any family, whether you're a child or adult. So that's a lot of work, again, legislatively, that we're working at, which will help then contribute to the rehabilitation of those individuals that might need it. But also on top of that too, we have to look at our economic development here in the city. If we lack the opportunities for individuals to, again, as I mentioned, be self-sufficient, you can see them fall into that rabbit hole, and really struggle to get out. So that's a lot of the work that I'm trying to do as a counselor at large. But even again, using that influence as a counselor to then go to the state house sometimes. And I'm glad that you're partnering with representatives like Chris Hendricks, who has been an amazing resource. He is now my representative ever since we did the new redistricting. These first 2 years, he has been so helpful in the process. I'm very thankful for Representative Hendricks. And I know this is a cause that's near and dear to his heart as well. So I just, continuing to work here on the local level on those housing issues, job opportunities, in our education system, I think will be huge contributions to the position that we want of educating our community and also helping them with the resources they need. But then knowing our limitations here on the local level, that's when we need to push up all the way. I always talk about a bottom up approach. A
Mm.
lot of times we talk about trickling down that power, but the grassroots level, that's where this is from. So when we have stories like Andrew's and using that influence to push up from here at the local level to the state level to the federal level. So that's what I plan to do. I want to continue, obviously, working with Achieve Greatness, as well as I know Paula has shared with me a lot of the other families who unfortunately have very similar stories, who are, grieving through this process. And I'm very thankful to you and your family and all those other families for using that grief and channeling it into something good, because that is not easy, and I want to really recognize that it's very powerful, but also very hard. It takes a lot of strength to do that, and in the long run, it's very helpful for so many other families that, when talking to your husband Phil, he had shared a story with me about a child that he had encountered that, I forget, I want to say she was like 11 years, a very young child,
Yes.
but had such an old soul. And
She was 8.
Oh,
Mm.
8. Okay, so even younger than I thought. Yeah.
Wow.
And just like how powerful that is for her to see people, sharing their stories, trying to help, and she could recognize that and the blessing that she gave to Phil in that moment that really helped. I feel for him, when speaking with him, seeing that, and as he shared with me, Andrew just passed away. And I think I want people to realize that too, that this, is very raw for you. It just happened this year. And I think for some people, they'd be surprised to hear that, because most people, when they are in the grieving process, they shut away, they
Mm.
hide away. And again, because of the stigma that we have around this issue, they're ashamed or afraid. So again, I thank you for not being ashamed or afraid and knowing that there is nothing to be ashamed of. And that's all the more reason to be out here and doing that. So again, I hope that I can be a vessel and a tool through this process, but you're actually doing a lot more than I could have ever thought that I could do in my role. So, I know that you just got back from DC, bringing such big stakeholders, from the Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, as most people know it as. That's huge. As we know here in New Bedford, especially, we often talk about being ignored from our state and federal officials. And for you to be able to enter these rooms the way you have and take up space and let them know who you are and who Andrew was, is so huge. And so that's why, I'm thankful that you have welcomed me into this process and allowed me to be a part of this platform with you.
No, I thank you, because I think it's important. And I know Charlie and I have talked multiple times on this, where we have constantly said, and Charlie has said it, he'd like to get more folks like you on here, possibly even some senators and congressmen, and even maybe one day the governor, because again, it's like you said, and I say this all of the time. I said this the other day when I was being interviewed by a reporter from the New York Times. And he questioned me, and he said, "Oh, well, what do you think about the current administration?" And I stopped him, and I said, "I'm going to tell you something. That's not what this is about for me. What this is about for me is this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a United States of America issue, and
Awesome.
and that's what you need to focus on. All
Great.
of you need to focus on that."
Great answer. Love it.
Yeah, because and of course, I know that many of these reporters, because the New York Times is a big thing, they know how to interview, they know how to ask those questions. And I was speaking to someone at the conference that I was just at in DC, and he is an agent. And he used to, in college, he actually took up media. And he said, you know how I do this, Paula, is when they start talking to me about the sky being blue, I tell them, well, you know what? The grass is green. And you revert them into talking about something else. And I kind of use that with this reporter. And I know that this week, just to let you know and everyone know, there will be a segment on me in the New Bedford Light.
Nice.
They did a segment on my story and Andrew's story and what we're doing. And again, I think it's very important that this continues to be said, but we continue to have, and Charlie has heard me say this, and Shane, as much as it pains me to say that, because I love to say councilman, because you are, you know, I never say that you're going to stand behind us. I say you're going to stand besides us, because that's how we're going to make a difference. I never say that we're going to get rid of drugs, because as we all know, the drugs have been here way before all of us, before Kennedy, Ford, all of them. It's not going to go away. But the crisis that we are facing now is a crisis of magnitude. When we are losing 300 a day, 300, and you do not see anything being talked about like we all did with COVID. And if you all remember COVID, every day, it was a ticker. We knew the lives that were being lost. We knew the states that were losing them. We knew how the hospitals were doing. We knew how the doctors and the nurses and the EMTs and everyone were struggling because of the mass crisis that was occurring. Well, we're losing 300 a day and you hear nothing. And this is a problem. This is a serious problem. I have said this and I will continue to say it. And this is why I am doing what I'm doing, because I don't want you to be me. I don't want you, my husband and I don't want you to have to go pick out a casket like he had to for our child, for a child. That's just not that's not the way life is supposed to work. That is unnatural and unnormal when you are burying your child to something that they knew nothing about because they were poisoned. And as all of you know, more and more reporting is coming out finally about fentanyl being in marijuana. Because when this first happened in 2022, last March with Andrew, and it was fentanyl and xylazine, people thought I was crazy. And I couldn't say this. I couldn't talk about this. I was having to show his medical examiner report just so that people knew this is truly happening. So now that we're starting to see it more and more, you know, I'm at the point where we need to educate. I am not able to get into the school systems because the schools do not want me to go in and talk about this. Or the verbiage is, well, you know, our health department is already talking about it. No, you're not. You're not talking about it the way I will. You're not talking about it the way a lived experience person is going to come in and talking about it. But yet, the school system will allow all of us to go in and talk about anything to do with other platforms that are going on in the United States right now, but we can't come in and talk about this to save lives. That is a huge problem.
Yeah, it is. The one thing I always do is put things and send things in certain directions, whether it's a school district or whether it's a city hall or city council, is you always put it in writing and get the reasoning in writing, so you can investigate it, dispute it, or try to find some resolution or some solutions of um, how you can get it introduced to those districts and into, you know, it's very, very important. Too many people don't use that, and just always your main resource should be writing. You put things in writing, people have to answer to it. It's very, very important.
Yeah, it is. And I think what's happening is that what we're starting to see is we are starting to see bipartisan support on both sides, which is a good thing. Thank God, because it is a bipartisan thing that is happening. There is other senators and Congress folks who have reached out to me from other states already, and they are willing to come on board and do what's needed because the numbers are high in their states. I mean, just here in New Bedford Light had an article where the number of fatalities that we had here in our city, and they were very high. And people are starting to see a crisis. We are in crisis mode. If you talk to anyone in the Cape right now or in Martha's Vineyard, the red flags have been blaring and no one's paying attention. And when you hear, oh, Martha's Vineyard, well, no, that can't be because, that's summer homes of many folks that we can all know and talk about. Well, it is. It's a huge crisis. And again, it's not being targeted. It's not being talked about. And this is where I think with me and with what we're doing in the platform is we're bringing forth the awareness, education, and advocacy because it has to be. And even if someone is not allowing me to go into a school, that's okay because I have other avenues.
Sure.
And this is something where other folks who are doing this, and you'll meet them this Thursday, Charlie, if you come, and obviously Shane, I will, these are folks that have encountered the same exact thing I am now, but found a different avenue and then went around it and still got the message out there to save lives. Because that's what it's about. When you face adversity, you look for the other door. You don't keep banging on that one. And that's exactly what I've learned from them. And one of the other speakers we're having is Michael Fiore. He is someone who was in substance abuse for almost 20 years. And just his story is phenomenal. He substance abuse, was incarcerated, has a wonderful, wonderful story. And now he is someone who has come out of it and is helping others in the California district of Orange County. He belongs to a home called the Magic House. The Magic House is many folks who are not just in substance abuse, but who were incarcerated, have come out and now formulated this exceptional, compassionate, loving organization and place where people are coming to get help, to move forward, and to have nothing but unconditional love. And his story is amazing. And I almost wish we had something like that here because I think it's needed. The stigma is huge. It is not going away. And people continue to say it's an overdose when it's not. And, mental health plays a huge part in this, huge part in this. You spoke about the adversities that we're facing here in our city with housing and so many other things that are occurring. But a lot of this stems back from mental health. And that's not being talked about. You have people who get to a certain level, whether they lost their job, they lost their home, things are not going well, they're being pressured to do something or to sell drugs to others. That stems from mental health. And we are not speaking about it. We are not targeting it. There is many great agencies here in our city that are trying to help as many as they can, but they're being inundated. They don't have beds to put the people. They don't have counselors to talk to the people that need it. So when we create a platform of where not only are we extending the olive branch, but we're letting you know that, we are utilizing many different platforms. We utilize sports. Andrew was a basketball coach. He loved basketball. We have on our committee Marcus Houtman, which he's very well known in the city. Marcus Houtman is the director of education and the director of basketball operations. We're looking to do big things. And Charlie, he's the next one we got to get on here. But it's something where, no, that's okay. It's something where, again, it's bringing community people together that are boots on the ground, that are here. And this is why when I had spoken to Charlie and I asked him if he would be an advisor, Charlie is very well known here in the city. Everyone knows Charlie. When Charlie speaks, people listen because of how well he's known and respected as a community leader. And
Thank you.
No, of course. And this is why I needed to align myself with people like Charlie, with Marcus and others, because I'm not from the community, as all of you know. I come from Western Massachusetts. I've been here for 22 years, but I don't have the avenues that Charlie and Marcus has, and you, councilmen. So I had to align myself with people like yourselves because of the exceptional people that you are, what you have in the community. You're truly the boots on the ground, and together is how we're going to combat this and save our citizens.
Yeah, we just got to do this together. It takes a village. I'm gonna read the town hall meeting. Just want to put this flyer up, especially people that are viewing on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn. That these are the guest speakers. Andrew Thomas, Michael Fiore. It's in Fairhaven Community Outreach. Brian O'Keefe, Paula Young will be there. So this is October 5th, and that's 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Fairhaven Town Hall, and that's 40 Center Street in Fairhaven. I just want to put that up there just so it is on the internet. So I will actually be sharing this every day. I will share that town meeting every day.
Thank you.
And Councilman Shane Virgo, I want you to have this opportunity to close the show with anything that you wish. Paula and I will be here next week at 12 noon. And but I want to leave this opportunity so you can close the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Again, I obviously want to thank you and Paula for giving me this opportunity to join you today, and obviously highlight the fentanyl town hall that we're going to be having. Again, I stress to people, I hope that you'll attend. I had hoped that we could have it in New Bedford. Unfortunately, not everyone has been as receptive to it. I want to mention, again, I'm thankful that I'm in a position where I can use my influence to highlight stories like Andrew's and others because of that stigma. That I hope that I can continue to be a voice in our community, whether elected or not. I want to be able to give a platform to situations like this, the town hall that's coming up, and the other work that we're going to continue to do. As I shared with Paula, it was, she was, it was honestly, it was a blessing, I say, because I focused a lot around housing in my first term. And as I mentioned during this podcast, housing is very important for a lot of the concerns that we're seeing in our community. But as you know, one of the main reasons I decided to run was because I wanted to do work like this with Paula. And so when she just kind of showed up, and tracked me down and didn't, give up. Because what I will say, I wasn't responsive at first. As you know, the busy schedules we have as counselors, it's easy to be forgetful of things. And so again, I want to thank Paula for, not giving up and saying, listen, we need to work on this, and really giving me the opportunity to use my platform in the way that I've always intended to use it. So please come join us at the town hall. I will say I've learned a lot because I think that's important to highlight. And that's one of the things I really respected about Charlie when you ran for mayor. When you'd be asked a question, I remember some of the advice you had given me when running for office was, don't be afraid to not know something. If someone asks you a question you might not know, okay, well, I'm going to look into that. I'll get back to you. So I've been thankful for Achieve Greatness. I'm glad to see that the website's there, achievegreatness88.org. And I know Paula has other fentanyl. Families Against Fentanyl, FAF.org, I believe is the
Yes.
website. So connecting me with those resources, I want to remind people, I'm learning still. I by no means am an expert, and I think that's what's important for people is you don't need to be an expert on this. That's why we're doing this work. That's why it's important to come to these town halls. That's why it's important to listen to these podcasts and meet with these families, because as we mentioned, that there are people behind these poisoning. There are people behind these statistics and numbers that you're seeing, and it's important to hear from them and to see the real harm that it's doing to our community. So I hope, again, not to keep beating a dead horse, that I can be that platform and that voice for families like Andrew's and others, so that way we can stop this, stop the senseless poisoning, but also for those families too that are overdosing, for all of it. We need to have a community of compassion, and that's how we can work to solve this crisis, by changing the narrative, fixing and getting rid of the stigma behind it, and really that educational piece for it. So again, I thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that people will really listen and understand that this is not something that happens to other people. It's happening to all of us.
True. I'm sorry. I'm almost there. I'm almost
No,
over this
worry.
cold.
I feel like this time of year too. I'm like, allergies are crazy. I'm like, oh, luckily we're past the point. I think, this time last year, if you had a cough or a sneeze, you were almost afraid people were going to attack you for COVID or what have
Yeah,
you. So
true.
I'm glad now if I sneeze at church, people just say bless you, as opposed to, oh no, get a mask.
Exactly. Exactly. The so Paula, Shane, next week we're gonna have excuse me. We're gonna have High Point with Benjamin Rose and Ross Grace Jr. They want to come on. So Paula, if you have some other guests that you want to put on with them, we'll kind of bring them all together and set up different times they can talk. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I think that's great, because I think at some point, we needed to reach out to these agencies in our community, because they are on the front line of this.
Yes.
A lot of them are on the front line of trying to help our substance abuse community, because there's so much that is entailed in it. But one of the things I have said to them in speaking to many of them and being on 40 task forces now in the state of Massachusetts, and it continues to grow, we really need to get to a level where we need to start saying that some of these are poisonings. They are not all overdoses. Mm-hmm. And that is my hope, by having them on next week, Charlie, that they see the numbers just like we do. We all see the numbers, all three of us on this call. We see the numbers because we all get it from the state. We know what's happening. We know the numbers here in our city. We know the numbers in Boston, because right now Boston is the number one in our state for fentanyl. Number one, Boston. And xylazine is quickly creeping up to possibly going to be number one very soon, not just fentanyl. And that's a huge crisis. That is a huge crisis. And again, having people like this, Charlie, on with you and I think will open up the door for so many others to see that if they have an issue or they feel that they're going down that path, there's a lot of help. There's a lot of really wonderful, compassionate people who work in these agencies who truly are here to try to help, and not to look down on them. That, as many have said, and even yourself, Shane, oh, they're just an addict. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, they're gone. Oh, well, whatever. It's just a number. I mean, many of you know, and I'll say this very quickly, when I was first notified about my son last year, and as many of you know, he was in Annapolis, one of the detectives said to me, well, Miss Young, what did you expect? Did you expect a different outcome? Mm. And that is not something and Charlie agreed 100%, being a former law enforcement, that is not the way you speak to a parent. It is not.
No, it isn't. It should be suspended, but that's
a whole nother show, Charlie.
Yeah. The well, we I want to say Paula, thank you. And also I want to also say, Paula, thank you for allowing us to continue this in your son's name. Andrew, I know you're listening, and we appreciate you. We know everything that you've done was from the kindness of your heart, and we're going to continue to save lives each and every single day. in your name, and continue to watch and look over mom, dad, your family, and all the people that you were mentoring. Keep an eye on them, Andrew. Be our guardian angel, as we know you can be. All right, everyone. I'm going to end with my favorite song from Peter Lionel Walker. And Shane, have a great day. Paula,
Charlie.
hugs. Give your big teddy bear at home a hug too. Phil, we see you. I hear you out there. Keep on supporting your lovely wife. And Paula, you keep supporting him, and you guys get through this together.
Thank you so much. And Councilman, thank you for being on with us. We so appreciate it.
Yes,
please know that this platform is open to you anytime, any Sunday. Please, if you have other things you want to bring up, we think it's important because, again, as Charlie has said numerous times in the podcast, it takes a village. And I think now it's more than a village. I keep telling people it's going to take the whole state, because that's where we're at.
Whole nation.
Yes, exactly. The whole nation. And Andrew's legacy is not how he passed away, but how many lives he's about to save. And that's what this is about.
So true. All right, you good people. Thanks for making my podcast great. Paula, thank you, my fabulous co-host. We will talk throughout the week, as we always do. Shane, good luck in the election.
Thank you.
And many people rooting for you, including myself. So keep up the good work, and I'll talk to you later.
Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. You can find this podcast on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Momentarily, probably within an hour, I will put it on Spotify. Also, I have to find Shane's enormous bio so I can add it to the podcast. All right. All right. Take care. See you later.
It's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bump into your broadcast, grab a chair, fill your glass. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bump into your broadcast, grab a chair, fill your glass.